Well, the presentation today was, the theme of the conference is Shopper Insights, right? And what we want to make sure is that we can demonstrate how Shopper Insights can become quite experiential. That the notion that data is abstract and is cold is just one view, that we can take that and we can apply it to a whole different set of lenses from customer experience, perspectives, design, strategy, and use that to start guiding into a right solution. So insights become strategy, strategy becomes design, design becomes experience, and experience differentiates companies from each other. So that was basically the theme of the conference. We talk about Emart, that is a retailer in South Korea. It's been extremely successful. We worked with them in the past, and that it presents a nice case of taking that strategy and insights into a whole customer experience side. The other thing that was interesting to understand is that there's still opportunities. The fact you're the largest one doesn't mean you need to stay there. And the fact that the competition is intense doesn't mean you need to stay home. As a matter of fact, you move forward. You try to innovate. You try to understand what are the things that you're not doing and come back and do it better. And do it better than the competition. In this case, Emart realized that there's still a lot of the market that they could just get and they could gain through doing something right. But that was the challenge. How do we do something that is different and start to just engage our customers different? When companies start to drive a lot of they master the business of the tactics, the tactics of the business. The operation, the speed, the efficiency is something that is incredibly how they do it. But sometimes in order to do that, you lose the emotion. You lose the things that really starts to connect with your consumers. If you think about why you buy products, and you start to think about why you go to brand A instead of brand B, if they could offer you the same shirt for the same price, it's because possibly you mentally connect better with the personality and with the emotion that one of those brands is giving you. So if you see what consumers were telling us about what they feel Emart didn't give them, was all the emotional sides. Yeah, look, they have fantastic parking lots. They have all clear store layouts. Those are just, you need that to be in the business, but that's not enough. Do they offer the cheapest gallon of milk in the market? Fantastic, but next day your competitor could just challenge that, and then you lost your differentiation. What we found pretty interesting on the right side or your left side on this is what they were not doing, and they were not delivering the emotional side that retailer needs to do for everybody. And we see that, we know that, we're all shoppers. High-end shopping is fantastic because it delivers a lot of emotional benefits from shopping on it. It needs to happen also in the hypermarkets. It needs to happen in this category. So what we did is we knew that we need to gain that solid understanding from consumers, right? And that's where Shopper Insights come to mind. We need to make sure that we understand what's the mindset of Korean consumer and how do we translate that into emotional positioning that will strengthen our brand. Cultural is critical, and therefore there's a challenge because our culture and society changes so fast today. The boundaries between cultures are also changing and being erased dramatically. What used to be very clear definitions of the different cultural approaches are becoming very muddy these days. And the idea that that's okay, we need to understand and we need to embrace that is necessary. But culture definitely is one of those components that is critical in everything we do. So to do some job in South Korea, as much as they could be the most wired society in the world, it still needs to be South Korea, right? This is not to bring a U.S. approach to a different market and thinking that it's going to work. It didn't work for companies that have been there. Walmart exited the South Korean market, just bringing a U.S. business model to it and try to operate it. So at that point, yeah, culture trumps strategy. We may have a fantastic business strategy, but if you don't pay attention to the cultural nuances that you have across societies, it's going to be challenged to implement everything. We didn't want to change them. We want them to enrich them, right? There was the notion that at some point the attributes of the colors were critical for us to come back and start to just keep building that equity. So it was basically the energetic quality of the yellow against the gray. And this is like one of those things you're going to look at me, well, black and gray, it's the same thing. Well, not really. The reality is that the gray still has that element that is more practical but stylish, but it's warmer. We wanted to make sure that from a brand perspective, we're creating a brand that was much more human, that it was something that people would connect with. At the same time, so was the notion of everyday style and value. So the colors start to make part of the strategy, start to make part of what the element of the consumer insights are part of this. It was also the identity. You know, if you think about it, there's all these things that we start to just make ingrained into everything we do. The notion of the inverse characters talks about very unique and innovative. You know, the notion of the shapes. If you see the two shapes inside the A and the E, it was basically the voice of the consumer, the voice of the company, but it was the notion of fresh. So even through certain cues in the identity, we could start to represent really what our consumers want from our brand. And then a lot of the components that apply with this. Even the normal, you know, the shapes on the elements, you know, we knew that, you know, 80% of the people who were shopping at Emart were women. So part of what is happening, we couldn't have an identity that was so, so kind of pointy and geometric. We needed to get something that is softer, that is much more approachable for our target consumer. When we talk about strategies, understanding of the company, understanding of where we're taking it, the positioning, it needs to lead creative. Creative in isolation may be a fad. It's something that happens, but it can go away. When creative is strongly rooted in strategy, it becomes something that can evolve with time and really take companies to different moments. You see the greatest brands into the market right now are companies that they seem like they're lead completely by design, but there's a lot of creative, a lot of strategy that happens before that's the case, and that really says what the market needs and applies for it. Part of the issue is that they look like this, and you start to think about fresh solutions, you start to think about emotion. This doesn't really do it, right? This was a logo that, as the CEO of the company told us one day, negotiated over dinner with a Japanese executive. They handshake and say, I like your logo, I'm going to use it, and that was it. So there's not a major history behind it, but we knew that in order to communicate fresh solutions, we needed to be different. Therefore, we change. So we start to modernize the brands to a point that just go to the market with a different perspective, and also just with a reason. This is not change for the sake of change. We start to give a lot of meaning and a lot of the customer insights into why we do all those components. Why the shapes? What is the meaning of each of these things? One of those that was pretty interesting is that if you ask a lot of people what the E means on Emart, I think that very few people will be able to give you an answer, because the reality, it didn't have a meaning. So the E in Emart didn't have a meaning at all. What we wanted is, we intentionally wanted to reinterpret even the name to drive consumer insights to the name and give it a meaning. Not because this is how we're going to drive advertising, because that's how we want people to behave. Internally and externally, they feel that this company is all about this. So what we did is that we got to the E, to the notion that was everyday. So if we talk about everyday, we talk about the casual in the company, E means the everyday. It means the everyday low prices, everyday fresh, everyday solutions. They're the company that's everyday occasions, experiences, style, right? Design. So all those components became critical into understanding the mindset of this and everyday innovation. I think that the notion that strategy and creativity are incredibly connected, and that the creative mindset can also have a structured, strategic approach to it is critical. That it really, and that doesn't have to hinder creativity. That really, that's the message, that there's nothing that needs to be less creative for the fact that it's going to be grounded in rigor and just have a very business strategy approach. I think that would be an interesting message to go out to the market and say, both of them could coexist. And as a matter of fact, your creative or your brand expression is going to be much better just because they do. So that will be the one thing that I would like everybody to live with, that this multidisciplinary approach, dynamic way of thinking is going to be critical for brands and companies in the future to exist and be successful in the market.